As I'm pretty sure anyone can tell you at this point, the United States of America is capable of some really shitty things, and since our public education system isn't going to be doing anyone any favors in that department anytime soon, we've come to rely more and more on movies and television to help us perform the basic human survival instinct of learning from our mistakes. And so we have the next installment in the ongoing Pursuit of the American Dream in the Most Literal Sense Gone Wrong series, subclass Foolish Person or Persons Makes a Shitload of Money Leading to a Misplaced and Ultimately Ruinous Sense of Overconfidence, subclass Drug Trafficking / Arms Dealership, subclass Eventually but Not Explicitly Unromantic Cautionary Tales. American Made is the story of Barry Seal, a pilot who smuggled weapons and cocaine between the United States and various Central and South American countries during the late 70s and early 80s, while pulling double duty as an informant for the CIA. Film depicts these events as they occur within the context of the Cold War, following the reignition of tensions after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and concerns the events leading to the Noriega dictatorship in Panama, the formation of the Medellin drug cartel in Colombia, and the Iran-Contra affair. It's an interesting and insightful story that American Made chooses to smother beneath shoddy presentation, lackadaisical stream of consciousness editing, and a cop-out framing device that fails to capitalize on any of the more resonant or relevant aspects of the tale of Barry Seal. The character of Barry Seal himself, performed serviceably by Tom Cruise despite the fact that most of his lines consist of repeating the last few words of other people's sentences as questions, is never allowed the outwards character arc that would have carried what was clearly set up to be the film's message until the very end. He more or less starts off as a brash, snappy dimwit, and once he starts making ludicrous amounts of money, the only effect it seems to have is that he starts to project harder. His perception of the events around him never seems to alter alongside the stakes at hand, and as such, the film stagnates as both a historical retelling and as a character study for the majority of its runtime. In an attempt to strive for period detail in a scenario where the character's generic workman-like outfits wouldn't allow for the costume department to cover that base, the film's aesthetic attempts to imitate circa 1980 shot-on-video footage, but with the excessive amounts of contrast handling and color correction and no real alteration to the actual picture quality, it all comes across as fake. A vague, expensively produced facsimile, made even more bizarrely inappropriate by the use of actually convincing home video footage, complete with aspect ratio change, timestamps, and analog static, that was used by the film whenever it jumped randomly back to the framing device, desperately attempting to keep its disjointed contents from spilling forth and ruining its proverbial slacks. Combine this with generally poor framing, excessive amounts of camera shake, and an inconsistent adherence to antiquated zoom and pan techniques, and you end up with a movie that looks like it was shot through an Instagram filter by a man with 2 broken wrists and a caffeine addiction. It's just not pleasant to look at. At least it was for the most part, because it seems that at some point halfway through the post-production of the film, somebody decided that all this extra effort to make the film look marketably worse was not a good idea. So they basically gave up, and the last 45 minutes of the movie just looked like any other Doug Liman movie. Coincidentally, the final moments of American Made are the only points where it, having previously made little attempt at biting satire in favor of a by-the-books retelling of information that could just as easily be gleaned from Seal's Wikipedia page, manages to have any teeth. Cruise's ability to turn the oblivious anti-hero with ill-gotten gains archetype on its head once the consequences of Seal's actions begin to catch up with him was easily the best part. And it all builds up to a strangely unsatisfying denouement that makes use of that infernal framing device again, to chicken out of actually showing the repercussions in favor of a lousy editing trick and having a character basically turn to the camera and tell you how important this whole thing was. American Made is a movie that should have had its work cut out for it, but its unwillingness to embrace the full spectrum of amoral debauchery on display leaves it stranded on an island of mediocrity. It's a shockingly inert film, especially given the copious amounts of cocaine on screen. I mean shit, I only snorted 3 lines off my Tom Cruise body pillow before the movie and I could barely even stay awake. Wait, fuck. This review never happened.